In March 2025, Nintendo of America made a commitment regarding games accessibility, but 1 year on, nothing much seems to have followed. In this video, we are going to be looking at what the issues may be, where Nintendo is on accessibility, and how important is it really to them. We're also going to delve into how the Controllable channel on YouTube is launching a project that promises to reveal exactly how Nintendo is faring on accessibility with its various games going forward.
Hi, this is Michael from Controllable. I'm a disabled Nintendo gamer, and I run a channel focused on breaking down games and Nintendo features through an accessibility lens. What works, what doesn't, and what that means for real players.
Firstly, though, let's understand what we mean by accessible gaming and why this may particularly matter to Nintendo. Nintendo has long sought to reach non traditional gamers with focuses on women, children, and seniors at various times throughout their history and with various different game strategies. However, inevitably, for some people, accessing games will be trickier than it is for other people. In the UK, 19% of working age adults have some kind of disability, and of course, rates of disability will increase with age, and the gaming community is hardly short of people these days suddenly noticing, aren't game developers looking younger these days? Even if they could ignore these issues previously because their demographics skewed younger, the portion of their audience who may require particular accessibility options in the years to come will only grow. Indeed, while trying to break into all new geographical territories, as they've done recently with Singapore, is an important step for the company and something that they have seemingly had some success with over recent years, they may find great value in finding ways to allow greater access to players in their existing markets. None of this is easy, though. Disabilities are far from monolithic, and even a developer with the deep pockets of Nintendo can't feasibly accommodate every conceivable accessibility need in every game. It's even tougher for indie developers on low to no margins. Still, this is something where Nintendo can show the lead on a systems level and through their support and ability to prototype different options. The company has always been comfortable with innovation, and trying to find new ways to control play has become critical to them. The Switch made your way to play its mantra, and so it is incumbent upon them to keep addressing these issues. Indeed, in 2018, when former Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aimé was still high up in Nintendo, he answered the question of how Nintendo would ensure their platform became more accessible. Now, this may be a personal matter for Reggie, as following his exit from Nintendo in 2020, he announced the nominees for the first ever Accessibility in Games Award at the 2020 Games Award. Nevertheless, as he pointed out in that speech, there are roughly 1 billion people in the world with some kind of disability, and he claimed that Nintendo's mantra at this time was always that gaming was for anyone. During 2018, he represented Nintendo's position as follows. 1. The conversation around accessibility is significant, and it's happening at the very highest levels of the company from the development standpoint in terms of how do we make sure that every player who wants to engage with our product can. So it's a huge topic. The other piece I'd say is I was over at the Microsoft booth yesterday and we had some hands-on time with the adaptive controller. And this is an area where I believe it's in the best interest of the industry to have the conversation and to think about the longer term solutions, because this is not, I would argue, this really isn't a platform specific issue. It's an industry issue of how do we make sure that our content and the ability to play our content is as inclusive as possible. End quote. Certain ways that Nintendo can appeal to disabled gamers may sync up with good design practice. Miyamoto noted in 2020 that they create games that anyone can play with simple and intuitive controls, and the word intuitive was used in a lot of Switch 2 promotion. But of course, what is intuitive to one player may be difficult or even impossible for another, and in recent years there has been some pushback in Japan. In June 2024, Shuntaro Furukawa was asked about initiatives for players with visual impairments at an investor Q&A, and while he's quite sure-footed generally with these kinds of statements, here his reply was a bit vague and makes me wonder if he was caught slightly unprepared. His reply was, "We want many people around the world to play our games. I won't go into specific details about our efforts here, but we will continue to make various efforts to ensure that many people can enjoy our games, including those with visual impairments, as well as others who have difficulty playing." One investor clearly was unsatisfied with his response and posted a follow-up exactly a year later, asking how product development accounts for accessibility issues for the visually impaired. This time, Furukawa's answer was more sure-footed and, dare I say, rehearsed. He said, "Let me explain our current initiatives using Nintendo Switch 2 as a specific example. To support a wide variety of playstyles, Nintendo Switch 2 offers various accessibility features, such as adjusting on-screen fonts and colors, text-to-speech for on-screen text, and button mapping customization. We are also continuously evaluating various technologies to expand accessibility features in our current and future products. We will continue to make various efforts so that as many people as possible, including those with disabilities, can enjoy our games. Thank you for your valuable input." He's right, Switch 2 does actually include a number of significant accessibility features, including, through Game Chat, a text-to-speak functionality that is reportedly fairly accurate, and the system is making waves early on for not including automatic censorship during the translations from Game Chat. There's also a full page on Nintendo's site that goes through the range of options available, and they appear fairly comprehensive, certainly compared to the original Switch's far less impressive set of accommodations. However, while there are great system-level accommodations, they don't address the key issues of the games themselves. Metroid Prime 4 may have had the ability to adjust in-game brightness, but you still need to be able to read the text. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is getting a feature to allow people to play with a mouse in the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, but it's limited to a very small two-player assist mode, clearly aimed at very young children indeed. These are piecemeal adaptations, not a standard approach, and indeed, Nintendo has often lagged behind competitors when it comes to button mapping and such like. There are understandable reasons. Nintendo want to curate a very specific experience, and clearly it would be counterproductive if measures designed to drive accessibility frustrated other audience members. In fact, one frustration that I've been asked a couple of times to look into is that hints and assistance efforts are often mandatory in Nintendo's titles, which also creates a frustrating play experience of a different kind. Then again, there are good examples. I'm reminded of Celeste, a massively challenging game, but one which includes a large yet easily comprehensible range of support tools while nudging you to do without them if you possibly can. It feels to me like most of these are solvable problems if Nintendo shows an interest in solving them. Therefore, it was an eyebrow-raising moment when in 2025 Nintendo joined an initiative from the Entertainment Software Association, a US-based trade association group for the gaming industry, most famous for their oversight of the American Ratings Board, ESRB, and for their long-running trade expo, E3. This project was called the Accessible Games Initiative and was launched in partnership with a range of American developers, basically a who's who of major companies in gaming such as EA, Google, Sony Interactive Entertainment, Ubisoft, and of course, Nintendo of America. Now, it should be noted that this is an American commitment specifically, and whether or not things are fed to other locations remain to be seen. The core of the initiative revolves around the idea of 25 tags, identifying different accessibility options by area of need supported. So auditory features include the tags like speech to text and text to speech in chat, the ability to play audio in mono or stereo, and narrated menus. The idea is that when you view information about games for sale from the publishers involved, they will use a common set of tags to make very clear which games support which features. In Nintendo's case, they say that these will be implemented in the future following a new update, although this has yet to come despite or perhaps because of them releasing a whole new console in the last year. It seems likely that they will eventually be implemented, especially as in July 2025, digital Xbox storefronts began including them, and it is still in Nintendo's interests to ensure a variety of players are accommodated. But it's probably a significant undertaking even for the scores of first-party Switch titles, let alone for the thousands of games available through the eShop. In this case, I'm not surprised that it might have faced some delays. Nevertheless, it's difficult to assess exactly how accessible Nintendo's games currently are from the outside because, of course, there are so many games and you need to play them to find out for sure. This is a commitment in America, but the majority of titles are made in Japan, and all the first-party content is coordinated through Japanese studios. Will highlighting these best practice options make a difference? I'm filled with questions that I lack an adequate dataset to answer. Are some developers within Nintendo consistently managing to create content that is more accessible through means that could be adapted quite easily? Are there solutions applied in some games that could easily be transposed to other titles? Is there evidence that Nintendo's game design in this respect is changing over time? It's a fascinating area, but until now, something which seemed a bit murky without Nintendo going through every game and forensically reviewing them. That's too big a job for one person, but perhaps not for one particular YouTube community. And Controllable, the YouTube channel dedicated to analysing gaming accessibility and often with a Nintendo focus.
Nintendo has always talked about gaming for everyone, but the bigger the audience gets, the more important it becomes to ask an efficient question. Who is really being included and who is quietly being left out? That's not an accusation, it's an evaluation. And right now, it's actually hard to answer that question clearly because there's no shared, transparent way to assess how accessible Nintendo games really are.
We've been discussing the issue for a few weeks, and a project has emerged that is looking rather exciting. Controllable's channel is going to be creating an assessment framework based on the 25 Accessibility Initiative tags. 25 tags will become 25 assessment criteria, and it also, for ease of reference, translates easily into percentage scores. As Controllable reviews ever more games, with the community pitching in, a far more transparent picture should begin to emerge of the accessibility landscape at Nintendo. For gamers concerned about accessibility features of themselves or their loved ones, and who are looking for greater transparency, having a central database of which games offer which features will obviously be a massive win, and it will also allow us to focus in much more clearly on what Nintendo and others are doing in this space, and indeed what lessons can be learned.
That's where this project comes in. Uncontrollable, my channel focuses specifically on Nintendo and gaming accessibility. Not as a theory, but as lived experience. What works and will play, what doesn't, and how design choices affect disabled players moment to moment. So instead of waiting for clarity from the top down, we decided to build something from the bottom up. The core idea is simple. Take the 25 accessibility tags from the Accessible Games Initiative and turn them into a consistent, repeatable assessment framework. 25 criteria. Clear yes, partial, or no answers, grouped into visual, auditory, motor, cognitive, and system level accessibility. That gives us two things Nintendo doesn't currently offer: transparency and comparability. This isn't about slapping a number on a game and calling it a day. The percentage score is just the surface. The real value is in the data underneath, which features show up consistently, which ones are rare, and which kinds of disabilities are being supported well versus quietly neglected. Over time, this lets us ask better questions. Are motor accessibility features more common than cognitive ones? Do first party Nintendo games do better than third party titles? Are Western studios approaching accessibility differently than Japanese teams? Those are questions we simply can't answer without structure. One important thing: this isn't just my opinion. The project is built around community input. Players submit assessments through a structured form that mirrors the 25 AGI criteria. That way, disabled players aren't reduced to edge cases. They become the data set. And because everything is standardized, we can aggregate the results without turning it into chaos. Mario Kart World had to be the proof of concept. It's one of the best selling Switch 2 titles. It's often bundled with the console, and it's the kind of game people point to when they say Nintendo games are for everyone. So if any game should set the accessibility baseline for the platform, it's this one. On Controllable, I break down Mario Kart World with using the exact framework, not to tear it down, but to share how the system works, where it succeeds, and where even Nintendo's strongest titles still leave gaps. So if you want to see how this framework actually functions in practice, not just in theory, head over to Controllable, where Mario Kart World is the first full accessibility dissection using the AGI criteria. This video isn't the conclusion, it's the starting point. Because if Nintendo is confident enough to forecast 19 million Switch 2 sales, then it's fair and necessary to ask how accessible that future really is. Links to the project, the framework, and future accessibility reviews will be collected in a dedicated controllable playlist called Controllable Dissection. So this can be revisited as Nintendo's library, and hopefully its accessibility practices evolve.
So, how will all this actually work? We'll follow the link on screen to cross to Controllables channel, where we'll see the game that had to be the proof of concept for this project, the game that should be the standard bearer for accessibility from Nintendo, Mario Kart World.